Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the BuckeyeHuddle.com signing day specials, recruiting capsules here with the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. I'm Mark Givler. Kevin Noon with me here as always. Again, throughout the day, we're going to have these little 10-minute or so breakdowns of every player Ohio State signs in its 2025 recruiting class as the Buckeyes put the finishing touches on another very highly ranked class. We are going to go back to the defensive line here. We've got Trajen Odom out of Matthews, North Carolina, right outside of Charlotte. Actually, a family that lives there in South Charlotte. So very familiar area to me. Weddington School. It's Trajen Odom, a highly regarded defensive strong side end, defensive tackle prospect. We think he's probably going to play inside at Ohio State. Summer pledge to the Buckeyes, Kevin. We were down at in the spring. Unfortunately, Trajan was on an official visit. We weren't able to hit him, but there's some other guys that were at that school that we talked to, and we'll get to that here at the end of the episode. But there was a lot of uncertainty around this one. I think a lot of people thought early on he was going to go to USC. USC's defensive line class, essentially, really while we were down there and in the weeks following our trip down to the South, slowly but surely just crumbled on them. They lost several defensive line commitments from the South. And I think those guys kind of being on their way out probably didn't help them with Trajen Odom. But there was still some thought there that maybe, USC would throw a Godfather type of NIL offer there, especially as they started losing players, and that Ohio State would be maybe hard pressed to hang on to him if they were able to get him. That didn't happen either. Maybe an underrated pickup here for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I think that there are certain positions that are going to get more notice than others. And at Ohio State, that's going to be quarterback, it's going to be wide receiver, and it's going to be defensive back, just basically with what Tim Walton's been able to do with defensive back recruiting here recently, especially even in this class with what Ohio State has. So it's easy to look past other positions. And, I think that if you're not a surefire edge rusher, you're probably not going to get talked about as much. And again, I think that we also trend to go toward negative news. And with Zahir Mathis and with London Merritt both decommitting, that certainly grabbed a lot of attention as well. But, don't let it take away from what Trajen Odom is. He is a fantastic player. Weddington is always just a powerful, powerful program. There was a hot moment where everything was about Mallard Creek there in Charlotte. I think everything now is about Weddington in terms of what it's able to do. And Odom played a big role in some of that success here recently. And I think that he's going to be somebody who comes in a pretty heavy interior defensive line class. And, I think he could, I think he's somebody who could stand out.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of a big bodied kid. He's going to have to fill out a little bit, but really, really strong, 6'5", 265. That is like a man's bull rush right there. But again, good hands, gets disengaged, violently throwing down the quarterback, but just a really big interior guy. What I'm curious about with him is clearly he has the quickness and athleticism of a 3-tech, but at 6'5", 265 already, is he destined to be like a 295 guy? And at that point, with that size, and given someone like a Jarquez Carter, who's not nearly that big of a framed kid, or even a Max Roy, who's not quite that big of a framed kid, does he have to play 1-tech by necessity? And if so, is that really a bad thing? Because now you're getting a bunch of interior pass rushers. They've done a great job, in my opinion, stockpiling interior pass rushers in this class. I know there's been angst about defensive end, and we'll be talking about that throughout the day as well. But I think they did a really good job here on the interior in this class, getting guys who not only are big athletic guys, but they have some pass rush ability. I know everyone wants the 300-pound run stuffer, as I've kind of mentioned over the years. There's 2 of those nationally every year. They're not, there's, every school in the country feels like they would like to have more of those guys. But if you can disrupt from the interior, that is just such a game changer on so many levels. And I think this is a guy who can absolutely do that. And he does it with great size, Kevin.
Yeah, Ohio State would have loved to have landed Malik Autry this year, but, it just didn't end up happening. Ohio State took its best swing that it could. And There you go. But I'll bring up a name from the past. I mean, just don't have the 295 defensive end. Don't have the Robert Rose, who just is completely miscast of what you've done with him. You've put too much weight on him, and there you go. If he ends up growing into a one tech, that's fine. That's great. I mean, I guess because an athlete going to athlete, and it's not like you're asking him to grow a third leg, or you're sitting there and putting like 450 pounds on him or anything else. So that would be a good problem to have. I mean, it's hard to believe Caden McDonald's already been in the program a couple of years at this point. I mean, you're going to have to sit there and keep making sure that you've got ones. I mean, if Ohio State ever makes any structural changes to its defense and goes into a 3-4, you're going to have to recruit differently anyway to sit there and have that nose tackle. Whether or not you're going to have, an athletic 330 or a sloppy 330 is the difference between your best teams and your not best teams. So it's an interesting thing to look at, especially with his classmates, with Max Roy, with Jarquez Carter, maybe not necessarily having the same kind of frame. Would you be able to do that with Trajan Odom and not diminish his ability to make plays? And sometimes too, it comes down to, you got to get the buy-in from the kid too. And that's, I want to do whatever it takes to help this team win games is all well and good. But, are you going to slide not only inside, but like all the way inside to like a 1? And, that doesn't necessarily get, the same type of mentions as everybody who kind of wants to be outside and wants to be that, that stand-up edge or whatever. So, I think that there's potential there, but, a long way to go, here on day one of his real Ohio State journey now that he's got his paperwork in.
Yeah, so just something to watch. I guess see where his body goes. I don't think you force anything with that. I think you just kind of let, the strength conditioning program take it where it's going to take it. But again, 6'5", 265 is such you can't teach that. Like there's things here that are just gifts you were born with in terms of, being that big and athletic. So a very, very intriguing player for me, someone who I think does realize he's an interior player now at this point and played there this year. But, definitely a guy with more than just, again, he's not just a big guy plugging up the middle. He is really athletic. He's explosive, and he's able to make a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. So that's the key here, I think, for me, is as they put this defensive tackle class together, all these guys are explosive, get in the backfield, disrupt things. There's not a lot of guys who are heavy-footed or, they've really done a good job here, I think, in evaluating that type of defensive lineman that just can really disrupt from the interior. So we'll see where Trajan makes his first and ultimate impact at Ohio State. There's a pretty good group in front of him right now within the program. Gets to come in and learn behind. But this was a big pickup. They kept him away from the ACC and SEC schools, beat out USC. Again, that was part of their big summer run they went on. And again, I think this is a guy who people will be impressed with once he gets to Ohio State officially. But he's officially signed. He's in the class. And the Buckeyes hold on to another player from the Southeast who I think people were like, oh, is he going to flip? And no, Ohio State was able to keep this one as well. So that'll do it for this episode. Again, all day here, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. We're going to be doing these little breakdowns of all the players who signed. We'll be doing a live show later in the day, Wednesday, to recap all the day's happenings and answer any questions you guys might have. So make sure to stay tuned for that later Wednesday evening. Look for us between the 5 and 6 o'clock hour-ish as we recap everything for that. Also, BuckeyeHuddle.com website subscription, $4.99 for your first month, which will take you all the way through the second round of the college football playoff. All the transfer portal action is going to be happening. Lots of stuff happening on the website, so please check us out there. Otherwise, thank you for watching and listening, and we will talk to you again very soon with another one of these capsules.